Hello and howdy. Welcome to Office Hours FM episode 103. The date is May 19th, 2016. It is 2 p.m. Eastern time, even though I am located in Central Time and my guest is located in Pacific Time, and you may be located in in another continent entirely. I don't know, but welcome all listeners to the show. And Bob, it's great to have you back on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, great. Always a pleasure. I think this is the third time, so I don't know what that means as far as a charm. Third time's a charm. I have no idea. So we'll see how it plays out.
We'll let you know at the end of the episode whether or not you were charming.
Yeah. Oh, God. Pressure's on now.
So for those of you guys who are tuning in live, you can ask questions on Twitter using the hashtag OfficeFM. Or if you're watching over on Google Plus or YouTube, you can use the Q&A app to send in your questions, and we will get those rolling. Before we get started, I would like to thank my sponsor today, who is myself. I know, it's yeah. Hey, it's my show. I can do that sort of stuff, right? Last week, I launched the OfficeHours.fm community, and so freaking excited about this, Bob. So it's a community where it's all behind closed doors, so to speak, behind a login. So it's a place where listeners can kind of take what they're hearing on the podcast, or maybe just other things going on in their business, and discuss it with each other and take the conversations further. People can start masterminds on that platform. They can do all sorts of things. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out, my.officehours.fm. And right now I'm running a free 30-day trial. So you got nothing to lose. Get on over there and check it out. So, all right, Bob.
Yes.
For those of you who haven't watched the previous episodes that you were on, or I don't know, haven't ever been on Twitter, who are you? Who are you and what do you do?
Who am I? Well, that's a good, I don't know how far back you want to go. I did have to have something, I knew you'd ask that, but for those of you that don't know, in 1992, my wife and I actually ran a marketing business for 20 years. So that's how I started, freelance design, all that good stuff. And the one thing nobody really knows is during that time, when we were kind of just outside Seattle, we actually won a business award with the Chamber of Commerce. We beat IKEA.
Nice.
Yeah. So nobody knows about that. And then the next award that came up, we ran against Boeing, and we just couldn't pull that one off. So,
well, their airplanes are a little bit bigger than IKEA's.
Yeah. So anyway, we did that, started that in 1992. And then in 2008, I really dove into WordPress. And since then, I've been doing a lot of training, workshops. I did some design because that was kind of the transition. And right now, I'm a blogger and podcaster. I mean, I'm just pushing out tons and tons of content, kind of a cut back on the training a bit, which is interesting for me. I mean, I feel like I'm still doing it through my blog, but I've really made some changes again. So, so that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, Bob, we're going to get into all of those things and probably things that we didn't even plan on. I had Jonathan Perez. I don't know if you remember Jonathan, a great guy, primarily hangs out in the Genesis community. I had him on the show once, and I called him the Madonna of WordPress because he was always reinventing himself. But I think you might be giving him a run for his money. And that's actually one of the things that I really like about you. I like really lots of things about you. But from a business perspective, I like that you have tried a bunch of different things. You see what works. You see what doesn't work. You have not been afraid to drop things that weren't working or kind of go out on a limb and experiment with some new things. And that's kind of, really that entrepreneurial spirit, just taking things for a whirl and seeing where they go. So going back to your training roots, if we could start there. So you were offering community, like in-person community event training and then 101 or one-on-one online, or?
Yeah. And that started about in 2010, I think, because I was kind of getting a little bit burnt out on the design aspect. I've been doing it for so many years. And I decided that I started doing local workshops, and a lot of them were free, and just they were on blogging and WordPress. And the more I got into that, it was like, wow, this is kind of cool. I'm enjoying this part of it. So then I started adding like the one-on-one, and that was all done online or in person. And that just kind of morphed over the years. But I stuck the one-on-one probably till about, just last year. It's maybe a few months ago, I actually stopped doing it completely. And that was a pretty big decision because everybody knew me for that. And that's what kind of was my specialty, I guess you could say. But it was just time to move on. And there was a few things. I actually wrote a post about it, kind of why I quit it, because there was challenges that came with it. And I was just at a point where I thought, I need to kind of pull back from this and figure out some other ways to keep doing it, but not so much one-on-one coaching type of stuff.
Sure. Well, we've talked about it with other guests on the show, and that's sort of when you're doing that one-on-one as your primary thing, like you run out of, there's only so much Bob to go around, right?
Yeah.
And it's not very repeatable. I don't know if that was, I did read your post. It's been a while since I covered it, but I could also imagine that in addition to kind of taking up hours and not leaving hours, not being able to earn if you weren't working, that also along those lines, kind of what's the word? An income, not a cap. I think quite the word I'm looking for, but
yeah, you can only do so much. Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things what I found was, and what really started drawing me away from it was I was really trying to coach and train. And I've had some clients, in fact, I still have a couple clients that hung on that I've done this for, I bet 3-4 years. It's just kind of an ongoing thing. They always come back for some advice. But what happened was people started really confusing support with coaching and training. And what was happening is a lot of people that were approaching me for the first time would send me a list of things and say, okay, this is what's wrong with my site. I need you to go in and fix those. And then I want you to teach me how you did it. And I'm like, okay, what part didn't you quite get there? I mean, that's being a little sarcastic, but the issue was that I ended up spending so much time explaining this to people. And I ended up email after email sending them back and saying, you need somebody to support you. You're looking for somebody to fix. You're not looking for training or coaching. And I would try to explain it, or somebody would just send me an email. I want you to train me one-on-one how to use WordPress. And I said, well, do you have the budget for like probably about 40 hours to actually do that? It's probably not really going to be worth it to you or my time. So there was all that stuff. And I think the biggest thing was I was spending too much time having to explain it, no matter how succinct I could explain it on my site. I mean, it was like I wanted big banner with dancing cats and frogs leaping that says, I do not do support. I do not fix things anymore. But, I think even then they wouldn't have seen it. So
maybe if you had one of those blow up dolls that sort of sways in the wind.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. I don't know how that would work on the internet. And a comment from Ginger saying that, yes, training and support do often overlap. And we've experienced that with offering product support that, somebody approaches asking, how do you do X with this theme, which is very much under the umbrella of theme support. And you answer, and then there's another reply. Okay, well, what if I wanted to move this and da 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 da? And you're like, okay, that's not what you're asking. Is just sort of like some CSS questions or some coding questions or how-tos, and that's really kind of outside the scope. But it is, yeah, it's I don't think people necessarily realize it either until you kind of draw a line in the sand or put dancing hats.
And I what I did is I'd done support for a lot of those years, so it was an easy, you know, it's like people would come to me for support training and coaching. But then when I just said, oh, I'm tired of this support thing, that didn't quite work out. I mean, it's, you know, certain people still came to me with the clear indication that, yeah, I need training and this is what we did. But it is often hand in hand. So the breaking apart of the two wasn't quite as successful as I'd hoped.
So how did you make why did you make the migration into podcasting?
You know, I actually thought of podcasting in 2011. And I had some good friends and colleagues that did a workshop on it. And it was kind of that point where podcasting was still popular. Then it kind of took a little nosedive again. Then it reemerged. And I had all this, oh, I was going to do it. Well, that didn't happen for God, I don't know how many years. Then when I decided to start the WP Breakdown, which is the one I had for about a year and a half, I just thought, I got to get back into I got to get into this finally. And that didn't really, I mean, it was a good podcast, but it just was, I was like, okay, I'm just talking WordPress all the time. And this is kind of what I'm doing. It just didn't click with me. So I put that aside and told everybody, I don't know when I'll start another one. I just got to wait till I get that idea. So it sat, that was probably mid 2015 or so when I quit that one. So I waited quite a few months and then I came up with the idea of the WooCommerce one. I played around with it a bit. I talked to a few people at Woo, getting ideas, feedback, and I thought, hey, this sounds like a good thing. Why don't I go for it? So now I'm already up to 2 shows a week, which is insane, but what can I say?
That's, well, yeah, and you do live in the Northwest. Just kidding. Just kidding. So the Do the Woo podcast, the vendor asked, are there any specific reasons and any takeaways on major Woo issues for users? Is there enough content there for a twice a week podcast?
I think what it is, when I talked to, actually Patrick at Woo was we had several conversations and we knew that it wasn't going to be all tech. You know, I mean, the shop owners don't need to always hear about the newest extension, the newest plugin. Oh, WordPress updated. Make sure and update this. Most of them honestly don't give a crap about a lot of that, you know. So we looked at, I think the big part of it is bringing in shop owners for interviews because everybody has a different story. Everybody's had different challenges. So I'm lining up that's going to be a good part of it is just talking to shop owners, finding out what they do. I did one with this guy that has this zeroshoes.com and it just, you get all sorts of personalities in there, different perspectives. And yeah, I think there's going to be enough. It's just a matter of like making a mix because I do some by myself. I do some with Woo people. I do some with shop owners. So if I bring in a big enough mix, hopefully it will keep me busy and, you know, or I'll have to start getting non-Woo people on just to ask why they're not on WooCommerce or something.
You can interrupt this regular broadcast with an EDD. Do the EDD. Right. So when they come on, are they primarily talking about more technical challenges around WooCommerce or more sharing experiences around e-commerce and general and converting sales and that sort of thing, or both?
I found with like the first one, it was both. So that really worked well. And that's another thing is I don't want to just so much focus on, I mean, it's, you know, it's kind of around WooCommerce, but I also want to bring in people that are the marketing, the social conversion, all that other stuff, just not, you know, here's the technical parts of it. Here's the extension parts of it. So there's really quite a big area there because the more general concepts of e-commerce easily blend into WooCommerce. And then I can always bring in little pieces of that. And my site, I'm even starting to expand more into more e-commerce sharing posts. I'm going to be doing some reviews, hopefully, on some of the other WooCommerce plugins that are out there and platforms. So that's kind of the basis for the podcast, but it's still it's interesting because I don't consider myself an e-commerce expert, but I'm learning a lot and I'm wanting to bring in people that know what the heck they're talking about. So it's been fun.
Well, Bob, then you're using my trick, which is I don't have to really know very much at all. I just have to know how to get really smart people onto the show.
Yeah.
So you're a content beast. I mean, for years consistently, you've cranked out a lot of content. When you've switched these gears each time, have you just had to kind of scrap it, or have you been able to repackage, reuse some of that still to your advantage?
Yeah. I think it's amazing some of the content I have on my blog that's still being commented on. People come in and ask questions for. I being technical on a lot of it, of course, dates it, things change. But yeah, I've been able to reinvent things since Judy, my wife and business partner, she's really kind of behind the scenes because she's the blogger. She wins awards with blogging. I never have. So I, she's doing a lot of stuff. She's bringing in the content part of things into the site. Usually once a week, she'll bring in, something around digital content, writing, whatever. So that brings in that important piece. So yeah, it's just, there's a ton of stuff. I'm always revisiting it, going back to old posts. Some of them I've redone, some of them I've updated. And even through all these different transitions, I've always tried to keep that up because it's been kind of that base. It's just always been there and people come to expect it in a while. And now it's like I'm even bumped it up more, which is more insane, but I put that focus more on just the blog and the podcasting.
Oh, I tell you, there's never a shortage, right, of things to do. I'm always feeling like I should be writing a post. Whatever it is I'm doing, I probably should be writing a post instead. But most of the time I'm not.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, let's talk some monetization strategies. So a lot of folks that listen to the show are very curious about affiliate income, sponsorships, things that enable you to make money and me to make money from doing things like blogging and podcasting. You and I have a lot in common in that we've had no shame over the years in pimping out affiliate links or or other things. I like to hope that we haven't been annoying about it, but can you share some of your monetization strategies for where you are right now doing the primarily the blogging and the podcasting?
Yeah. And it's interesting you're saying that, you and I are crazy that way, but I think with both of us, the key is we've also built trust and a community before we started doing that, where, if you just start putting all that crap out there, people are like, whoa, what's going on here? They start to trust you and they depend on you as a resource, and they're figuring you're not, whatever reputation you and I have, I don't know about yours, but but whatever we have, we don't want it to get damaged any more than it might be. But
I cannot handle being tarnished.
But that was important, and I had to move into it slowly, and I had to make some decisions. I mean, the affiliates, and I know you've written a post that I know that I've shared, is really a matter of using what you got to at least trust the affiliates you share. For me, there's a little bit of a challenge with my reviews because a lot of that stuff maybe I haven't used, but I do test it out and I feel confident enough that I can, put that on that particular post. Now, the affiliates within posts like you've done and you've explained that works best. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Right now I've put sidebar back on my site. I didn't have one for quite a long time, and I have three ads in there that are not really paid ads. They're just basically, affiliates. And I really had to think, what are these three that are sitting there? Are they going to ever compete with whatever I'm posting? And if it's a sponsored review, I don't want it to, compete with that. So I had to be really selective and think of, for example, putting a theme in the side I don't think would be great, because I do a lot of theme reviews. So I had to balance that out. I've had people constantly ask me for advertising space, and that's something I haven't quite done yet. I'm just not quite ready to go that route. The affiliate, I'm a lot more comfortable with, but the advertising, and I get these weird people sending me, it's like, why would I advertise your stuff on my blog? This makes absolutely no sense. I think they're just mass sending it out. But so the affiliate's a huge part of it. And I think, again, that's building it up over time. It's something you just, you know that probably as well as I do, that, first it's great for gas money when you start doing it. And then hopefully it starts building up from there. So there's that piece. The sponsored reviews, which I do for themes and plugins and stuff, has gone quite well. It's interesting with reviews, because a lot of people expect reviews to be this, you're going to go in and tear it apart. You're either going to say all these good things, bad things. You're going to do pros and cons. How I build up my site is through tutorials. So I kind of come to a review as a tutorial rather than an actual review. So I'm going to go through and show you everything that this thing can do, all the different features. I'm not going to point out that, oh, it's missing this or it's missing that, because there's probably some reason it's missing that, and I don't know it. Only the plugin or theme developer knows that. So I'd rather present you with everything it can do and say, now you make the decision. So it's a little bit different. I don't do comparison reviews, because that's just not what I'm going to do. And then, of course, then the sponsorships for the podcast, that's just started, but so far that's been going okay. So trying to combine all those and looking at some other different ways of doing things right now, it's kind of a constant exploring, but I'd say probably the ads are at the bottom of the list.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so question for you. When you started doing sponsored reviews, and if anybody's listening and not quite sure what that means somebody is paying you money to do the review, or in your case, you said you're writing it more tutorial style. Mm-hmm. Did that come about from you're getting all those requests anyways, and you said, hey, let me, I might as well charge people for it, bit of a payment gateway?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened, because I make it clear to people that I still will write posts about plugins and themes that I choose to. They're something I've used for a long time. I'm going to do it. So basically with a sponsored review, you're getting a guaranteed spot on my blog. And it's really as simple as that, and I'm going to share it and I'm going to get it out there. But yeah, it's so nice now, because I used to get everybody sending me these emails that would say, oh, well, you look at my plugin. Will you mention my plugin on the, blah, blah, blah. Now I just send them to my sponsored reviews. And a lot of times that really kind of stops things real quick, one way or another.
Well, so I've done something similar along those lines. I don't do sponsored reviews of or any paid content on my site, but above my contact form, and you can go right now and look at it, carriedeals.com/contact. I put right above the form, hey, if you think that my audience would really like your product, then go check out my podcast sponsorship. And that's how you can get in front of them. Because it just sort of irritates me when people just sort of bombard you with these requests to take a look, or, hey, would you write a blog post about this? I think your audience would love it. And I'm like, what do you know about my audience?
Yeah,
You don't
exactly.
just get to waltz in and say, anyways, I'm kind of going on a tirade there.
But no, it's true, because I've had people say it even to me on Twitter. They'll say something and I'll send them back a link and say, hey, you might want to check it out. And what's interesting is that's a few times actually moved into a sponsored review. They go, oh, okay. That sounds good. So yeah, it's crazy. And, if we were putting up everything everybody wanted, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's kind of like, hey, it's life, like Matt Medeiros says, we're in to make money. We're not just all sitting back, and we got to make money too,
That's right. Profitability is, I won't say it's everything, because that's certainly not the most important thing in life. But from a business perspective, at the end of the day, you've got to be making money. So
right.
As for podcast sponsorships, how have you, is that something that, like, if somebody wanted to try doing podcast sponsorships, or maybe even the paid reviews like you're doing, would you have suggestions on maybe if people aren't knocking down their door, what would be the best approach for finding the right partners to sponsor?
Yeah, well, what I've done, I think, is I kind of go back that building relationships, or you already have that contact in the community. So there's a lot of people that I'm fortunate that I know that I can send an email to, just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm not sure if this is a fit in your marketing scheme, whatever. They don't take it as I'm just selling them. They know me, through some kind of experience, and they have no problem, oh, hey, that doesn't work for us right now, Bob, or check us 3 months down the road. It's a tough sell. I mean, it's sales in a way. And, if you're just starting and you don't have a lot of connections, it is going to be tough, because these people are getting asked all the time for sponsorships. I mean, through WordCamps and all that stuff. So having that relationship, when I was at WooConf, I talked to a lot of the vendors there, and a lot of them said, yeah, connect with us, because that's something we'd like to do down the road. So yeah, it's again, it's a process. And if you want to do it, I did sponsored workshops for quite some time, and that worked well for a time. And then there was a time where I just thought, this isn't working for one reason or another, and it's time to move on. So, and the podcast, hopefully, that's a little bit more, it's going to be there, and I can do it without a sponsor if I need to. So it's, I wish there was some magic formula. You either got to be a really good salesperson, or you gotta know enough people.
I'm going to go with the relationship building route, because my sales, it sucks. It's basically,
mine too. I'm terrible at it.
I would be the world's worst Girl Scout when it came to selling cookies. I would just buy them all and eat them all myself. So that I didn't have to go door to door. So Costas asks, if you were approached to do a sponsored review for a product you didn't like, would you politely decline, or would you write an honest review?
I would decline. I would say, in fact, with the podcast, with the sponsored reviews, they can basically buy it straight out. And if it was something I really didn't want to do, I would say, sorry, that's not going to work. In fact, I've actually removed hosting as a review hosting, how that goes, the whole thing and the drama behind hosting. I just don't want to I've done like 3 reviews of that, and I don't want to kind of dive into that water anymore review wise. So yeah, I would definitely turn down the podcasts. I actually screen people, so I have them submit it before they pay, because that's a little bit more focused, the WooCommerce thing. And I don't want to be having a sponsor that's a GPL reseller that's just reselling everybody else's stuff. And so I'm a lot more picky with the podcast than I am with the reviews. But yeah, if I don't like something, or I don't like, for some reason, even their business model, I would say, oh, here's your money back. Sorry, it just doesn't work.
I hear you. I've taken the same path myself. So yeah, if you're tuning in live and have any questions about sponsorships, boy, Heidi, this is the time to get a question in. You can do that with hashtag OfficeFM or over on Google using the Q&A app. We got another question from Costas. He asks, have you done any corporate training? Could you see any 4-figure per day corporate training in WordPress, like perhaps you'd find in other industries?
Yeah, I've done a bit of it. During the time I was doing training and in-person training, and when I was doing it actually on location type training instead of just online, I did have corporate opened, and I did do a few corporate. I'm trying to remember my clients. It's been so long. There was a couple bigger ones that I went in. What was the one that was? I'm drawing a blank, but I did. No, they hated me after I won that award. So that was over with. They let me buy their furniture, but that's it. But no, it was always there. I didn't push it a lot. I tried to get into it more, but it was interesting because as I got more online and got less out of the local business community, it was a little tougher to get the word out. So I didn't push it a lot. And I wasn't, when I was a marketing business back, whatever, I was in the local chamber and doing all that stuff. That would have been the better networking. As far as seeing I wasn't doing a lot of that local in-person hanging and schmoozing. So I think that probably was it, because I would only do local, of course, corporate. I did offer it online, and a couple people did it. What I noticed that is a couple times one time I was contacted from somebody in, I think it's South America or something. They wanted me to do a corporate training, but it was basically all around developer stuff. It was coding, it was all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, you're talking to the wrong guy here. So that didn't, we had a good conversation. They understood what the direction I was going. But yeah, it's one of those things that you got to hit them at the right time. Right place, right time. It's really tough because one of the corporate jobs I had, they had actually taken over a big blog that was a media blog that was TV or whatever. So I can't remember. It was Real Networks. That's who it was. And they had me come in and do some training because this whole department now had a WordPress blog that they didn't know how to use. So I went in and did this basic training. They happened to come across my name. Otherwise, that was the one time they needed it. So it was, I'm sure there's a lot of need out there. Just finding it is tough.
Yeah, that's probably not most on people's radars in terms of the people who could provide that service and in terms of the people who are necessarily looking for that service. But that is, man, there's certainly a lot of money in corporate training.
Yeah.
And my company I worked with once sent me for some Microsoft certification or whatnot. And it's in the thousands of dollars. And I was like, better your tab than mine.
Yeah.
Then I got the certification and I quit.
It's a great gig to get into if you can do it, It's definitely. And there, it's some good money to be made, but it's a tough one too.
Not for everybody.
Yep.
Paul has I can't tell if he's trolling or not. He says, Bob, can you arrange to keep Do the Woo on your podcast and out of baseball stadiums? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If it's in a baseball stadium, I would love that, unless somebody's listening to it next to him and it's bothering him. And I'm not quite sure why they would have it playing there. It's yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say no. If the baseball stadium wants to play my podcast at halftime, well, not halftime, I should say mid-game, halftime. You can tell I watch baseball a lot, right? But if they want to do that, or instead of doing their little songs and, even if they want to replace the national anthem, whatever turns them on, okay.
Probably during their 7th quarter stretch.
Yeah, that's it. 7th inning. Yeah. Yeah. After I'm,
Oh,
yeah.
ooh, that was
Okay.
funny. So Devinder asks great question. He says, video podcast versus audio only podcast. Which do you prefer? Do you have an opinion on what works better?
Oh, this audio stuff sucks, because I have to look good all the time. And no, I think it really depends on your audience. The reason I went with the audio only is when I was doing the podcast before, I had a lot of people come back to me and say they love it because they grab it and, put it on their, whatever they're listening to as they're exercising or walking around doing their walk. And I know that most people that do, video will do audio too. So I think it's what you decide you want. I mean, I just want, I have a lot of guests that are very happy it's not video because they say, oh God, I don't have to worry about how I look, but I think, and there's a lot of people that love that video aspect to it. I started putting my podcasts on YouTube and I just put a still shot. I kind of reformat it a little bit and I put a still shot or I put a sponsor logo or whatever during the video. So it's pretty boring as far as the video. I just put them on there because I thought might as well put them on my channel. Yeah, I don't really know if there's myself. I prefer the audio only what I'm doing. I don't think I could handle 2 videos a week, because I'd have to shave much more often and change my clothes. No,
Man, you'd have to put on something other than your web developer pants.
yeah, I know. So no, but I think nowadays it's so blended that nobody really thinks of a podcast as audio only. I mean, that's what it used to be. It's just kind of whatever, I don't know if you have some thoughts on why you decided video or
Yeah, it's clearly my preference since that's how I do things, but a couple of reasons, mostly because I like looking face to face with someone when we're talking. The times that I've been on other people's interviews, if it's audio only and there's I'm just looking at a blank screen, it's much harder to be engaged. So I like that aspect. And then secondly, like you mentioned, putting on YouTube is just sort of another channel for people to find your content. So, what we're recording now gets passed off to YouTube automatically via Google Hangouts. And then I'll strip the audio and send that out to, like iTunes and whoever else is picking up the RSS feed. So it's just sort of, one more way to be out there.
Yeah. And that makes sense, it's, but yeah, I just chose to go audio because maybe it's a personal preference, kind of like you said, that's what you enjoy this more. And I enjoy hiding behind it's kind of like being a DJ or something, versus being a newscaster. I don't know.
Face for radio, if you will.
Yeah.
Costas commented that I really just like seeing myself on screen. Actually, that
whatever turns your wheel,
Hey, it's true. Although I like the sound of my own voice better than the look of myself on screen. But
that's what people like. I mean, I get compliments on my voice, so I don't want to ruin that. It's like it's gray area there. So I want to keep it nice and smooth. They might look at me and say, "Oh God, that's what he looks like." I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's funny. Okay. So moving or shifting gears a little bit, throughout your, what is it, like 8 years in working with WordPress? Somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
And all the different things you have tried, any spectacular failures or what not to do's that you've learned along the way that you'd be willing to share?
Oh boy. Let's see. I haven't had a heck of a lot of luck with membership sites. And I don't know. I think one of the things that whenever I've tried a membership site, it's been, of course, around WordPress. And even with online courses, WordPress is so saturated. I mean, you have your, you build your brand, and my blog is my brand and stuff. But with when I've tried online courses and memberships, it just hasn't clicked as good as I had hoped it would. So I didn't sit there and wallow in it and think, oh, why is this not working? I just thought, okay, flip the switch on that, move on. And I think that there's, especially online courses are so big right now. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people, but you have to find a bit of a niche there. You can't, I mean, online courses, you're on lynda.com. They have tons of good WordPress, what other Treehouse, WP 101, all their video tutorials, all that stuff is already out there. And I got to a point where I just thought, why am I continuing to try to rehash this, even though I'd like to think, I have a certain style to teaching and whatever. Why don't I just become an affiliate of all those and push those instead? Much easier, and they can update all those videos. But that's been a real interesting challenge to do. And I'm sure there's other things I've tried. I did admit that I did try a stock photography site before I even started WordPress. I actually tried my e-commerce fingertips into something and decided to do this stock photography site and have these photographers. Well, that was kind of like, anyway, that was a real bomb. That was one of those things. I think it just because I like to go out and take pictures, I thought I can sell other people's pictures, and I wasn't really thinking of what's out there. And even back then, this was like probably around 2005 or 2006, and that was a big boo boo.
Yeah, that's a tough row to hoe in the stock photography space. So back on the memberships real quick, how much time, money, effort, energy, I mean, you invested a lot, I'm assuming, to get it up and running, at least your time and energy, if not financially. When you pulled the plug, was there a certain milestone that you reached? You're like, okay, this isn't cutting it, we're yanking it. Or was it kind of a slow letting go, or how did you know when it was time to?
Some are very quick. The very first one we did was around marketing. So it wasn't even WordPress specific. And this was quite a few years ago. And it was when the theme Headway had just come out, or it was starting to come out. I think it had been out a little bit. And I spent like 7 months building this site, this membership site, using that, and spent a lot of time. And what was interesting with that particular one is we had it up for probably about 6 months. And what we realized at a point wasn't so much the success of the membership there. It was one day Judy looked at me and said, "Do you like doing this membership site?" And I said, "Not really." And she said, "I don't either." Because it was that constant, okay, we have to have this certain content, whatever. It was pushing out that content, but it was so different than pushing it out on the blog that we just, at that time, we didn't have too many members where it was going to be like, whoa, this is a disaster. We just flipped the switch. We did it the next day. We said, this is it. Bye-bye, folks. And so there's never really I'd like to say there's that sweet spot when I said, oh, this isn't working or whatever. But I find that if I'm not one to easily give up, because I've run businesses for a long time. But on the other hand, if it gets to a point that it starts becoming a real hassle and a kind of a dread, and you just think this just isn't, you get this feeling, maybe I don't want to say it's because I've been in business as long as I have, but I get this gut feeling that it's time to flip the switch. If I work at this anymore, I'm just going to be spinning my wheels. So it really varies from one to the other.
That's an astute question from Judy. Are you enjoying this? Yeah, when you go into business for yourself, you have to really feel passionate about what it is you're doing, because my word, you're spending a lot of time on whatever that is. And if you don't like it, then your energy can, even if you like the idea of it going into it, if the reality of it was not you're playing to your strengths, then that's just a massive drain.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I think you go into it like that was our very first one we tried. So we went into it, I don't want to say, but it was just kind of when membership sites were everybody was excited about them. And you thought, I wasn't as naive to think, okay, I'm going to make money while I sleep, but that entices you maybe the first time. And you realize that, if I slept 2 hours a night, yeah, that would be true, but it didn't quite work out that way. So what you do is you have to work 22 hours and sleep 2 hours, and then you can actually make money while you sleep.
That is the quote of the show right there. The secret to making money while you sleep is to only sleep 2 hours, possibly even 1 hour. If you're just
right.
Nice. We've got a few minutes, about 15 minutes here left with Bob on the show. So if you're listening live and want to get a question in, now is your time to do it. And this is probably a bad place to mention this on the heels of what you were just talking about with membership websites. But
I didn't mean that.
Oh, not at all. Apples and oranges. Only membership in common. But last week, I launched the brand new Office Hours FM community. It's over at my.officehours.fm. And I'm extremely excited about it. I imagine that it's a place where I've got ideas in my head of what I envision that community looking like, in a place where basically kind of like a giant mastermind. And so if you're listening to this and want to try it out, get on over there and do that right now. It's a free 30-day trial. I also have Office Hours swag going on. So if you've ever thought to yourself, I sure wish I was drinking out of an Office Hours mug, that dream can become a reality. I don't even know what to say on that one.
But you built your membership site around the community that you've already grew. So that's a huge, just from my experiences, that's one of the biggest pieces of it. And that's what a lot of, I think, maybe the failed membership sites, whether it was mine or not, may have been because they didn't have the right community, or it wasn't quite geared towards a community they had that they already existed. So I think you're way ahead of the game on that.
Well, I hope so. I don't think that I'm necessarily doing anything that isn't already being done out there. As the wise King Solomon once said, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
But I think what makes it different is just because it is this community. It's a very specific community that is tuned into this podcast and listened to this podcast and been challenged in some way, in a good way, and that might want to be a part of a larger community. So we shall see. Time will tell. Yeah. Matt Medeiros is on Twitter right now, and he is trolling you. He wants to know if this is the hardest you've ever worked, short of the ice cream truck.
No, the ice cream truck was the toughest job, driving one of those things because of the music.
Well, you really did drive an ice cream truck.
Yeah,
that
was my first entrepreneurial adventure, was driving an ice cream truck. In fact, I was driving it when Mount St. Helens blew in Washington here. I was in a park driving, and suddenly the sky became dark and stuff started falling from the sky. And I'm, this kind of long-haired guy driving around this ice cream. So I'm thinking it's the end of the world, and maybe I should just eat all the ice cream before everything explodes. I don't know, but
that's what I would have done.
Yeah, I did that. I did that, and now I could drive an ice cream truck and have my podcast playing at the same time, which would be kind of an interesting concept.
You could. Wow. I picture, somebody after the volcano eruption happens, or not the volcano, the whatever, the Mount St. Helens, that you're just in the back of your ice cream truck, sucking your thumb and eating ice cream cones, and kind of rocking back and forth.
Yeah.
Waiting for the end. Well, anyways, I managed to make that completely awkward. So you do all these various product reviews. Is there anything interesting that you've seen kind of coming down the wire that you'd feel like sharing about, tools wise?
Oh man, I think it's just a variety. It's kind of fun. The thing I like about it is, we tend to grab stuff that we just are familiar with to put on our blog. I mean, that's the nature of the beast, because you have the experience, you're familiar with it. So it's always fun seeing what's new out there and stuff coming in different. One of the reviews, I mean, I did one on a monetization. I've done some on a few themes, and even what was a Gravity Flow. I did that plugin for Gravity Forms, and I'd heard of the plugin before, and I never really paid much attention to it in the sense that I didn't see a need for it. But once I got into it, it's like, wow, this is cool stuff. So I think it's almost being, I almost say, forced exposed, but where maybe you wouldn't have the time to normally dive into something, you're suddenly saying, wow, I knew this product existed. I never had a chance to really check it out. And now it's like, hey, it's on my short list here as far as, recommendations to people. So nothing specific, but I think that's kind of the cool part of it, exploring new stuff you maybe wouldn't have.
Yeah, definitely. They were, Gravity Flow actually sponsored the podcast earlier this year. And I was, too, like you, not familiar with the actual kind of ins and outs of it, and got to using it. And it was, oh my gosh, this is a really cool tool for managing business processes. So yeah, it is fun to step outside and try new things, that kind of on a slight tangent, I'm thinking lately about the value of getting out of the WordPress circle a little bit, and to experience maybe some different perspectives from either different open source groups, or maybe, maybe it's not even open source, but I don't know. I feel like we do get in a little bit of an echo chamber in the WordPress circles, and it's so refreshing. Those times when I'm just sort of accidentally gotten myself in conversations with people who had nothing to do with WordPress, and hear some of their perspectives on things. I don't. Anyways, any comments on that really random?
Yeah, actually, I did when I was doing my other podcast. I did a podcast about that, breaking out of the WordPress bubble, and I think I come from a different perspective because I've been doing this a long time. In the 20 years of the other business, I was involved in that whole Chamber of Commerce stuff, a lot of local schmoozing, networking, and I'm at the point where it's not that I don't feel like I need to do that, but I've done a lot of it in the past, and I'll tell everybody I turn 59 next weekend, and I'm like at a point where my schmoozing days, I enjoy it, going out and talking to people, but I think that it is huge missing part for a lot of people. I see some WordPress people they're so, and the community's great, but it's like, my God, get out there and go to some other conferences, or go to some other networking events, or go to we ran a lunch networking event for a few months when we were probably around 2012 or so. And it was a lunch each month, and it wasn't WordPress focused. I mean, it was more just 15 businesses random get together and just talk about stuff. And it's otherwise you're just going to, you're never going to grow or anything. You got to get out of it. And whether it's online or in person, if you can do it in person, I think the in-person stuff is very valuable. And that's a piece that a lot of people are missing. And sometimes it's because of where they live, the blogger in Antarctica doesn't get out very often, I'm sure. There isn't the Antarctica Chamber of Commerce. Maybe there is, I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know. I don't know about really too much about Antarctica.
Yeah.
Other than it's probably too cold for my blood.
Yeah.
Wow, Matt is really lighting me up for not knowing that you had the ice cream truck.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay, well, hey, Matt knows the inner workings of Bob down to the ice cream truck, I guess.
There you go.
I don't know what exactly that means, but if he's proud of that, then by God, let him tweet about it.
Tweet on, Matt. And I'm not perfect. For all the people that were thinking I was just perfect there, just proved it that I'm nowhere close. So what's next on the horizon for Bob?
I think it's just kind of going, I don't want to say status quo because it will never be, but really focusing on this whole monetization and seeing how that plays out. I mean, I can honestly say, somebody had asked me the other day, are you at a point with this where you can say, okay, you're at that sweet spot? No, I'm not. It's going to take a while. And that's what my next goal is. But, hey, me, next week I could be tweeting about some bizarre thing. You never know. But nothing's set in stone yet. Stuff always whirling in the head.
I suspect that you may be opening a snow cone stand. And blaring your podcast.
Yeah. I was thinking though, with the podcast and the ice cream truck, it would have to be a stand because then people you'd have to drive slow enough for people could walk behind you to listen to the entire episode, which would be kind of weird at a point. So that wouldn't quite work.
It would be weird, but that's a fantastic mental picture. Question here from Patty. Would you do one-on-one podcast training if somebody was wanting to learn how to podcast?
Oh, at this point, probably not, because I don't feel like I'm a pro at it yet. I think I've still got a few things to learn about it. If somebody I'm Brendan, somebody at WordCamp, they said, let's go have a beer and talk about podcasting. Hey, I'll share whatever, but I don't think I'd really go to the point of saying, okay, now I'm a podcasting coach and you can hire me for an hour time, because it's something that will evolve over time. And whether I'd ever do that, I still get some people asking me for certain coaching, and depending on what they want to know, I'll throw in it here and there, but I'm not probably yet at the podcasting coach level.
Okay, then, Patty, no podcasting lessons for you. Well, Bob, as we wrap up, let people know where they can find you online to say hello. Or
just Google Bob WP. That's all they have to do. I mean, I'm on Twitter a lot, so that's probably where I hang the most, and a little bit on Facebook and here and there and stuff. So yeah, just keep an eye out for Bob WP, and that's about it. Google
Bob WP, not to be confused with WP Bob, which I accidentally did one time, and that is something completely other.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah.
Don't do that. So, all right. Well, with that, we will wrap up another successful episode of Office Hours FM. This has been episode 103, and you can catch the replay over at officehours.fm. You can actually catch the replay of any show in our arsenal. I don't know why I said arsenal. In our archive of host. Wow. You know what? I've been drinking a Red Bull during this thing, and I think it's that was probably a bad idea. Okay. Well, with that, everybody listening that tuned in live, thanks so much. And if you're catching this after the fact, I appreciate you greatly too. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
All right.